So we're talking a supplier's perspective on procurement professionals. We've got 3 areas we're going to cover. We're going to have a look at a case study for a service tender, which I believe is one of the more difficult ones to run through. What I hate about tenders, and the real value of being a valuable customer. So look, we've got 30 minutes together and we'll get cracking. Probably know these guys, Foster's Group, iconic Australian brand. They're heroes in my book, especially the marketing department. I reckon they're absolutely brilliant because they've managed to convince everybody that we drink this crap. I mean, the last time I saw an Australian with a can of Foster's in their hand was Barry McKenzie in 1977, and he got paid to do it. But the guys at Foster's tell us they also have another brand, and you probably know this one as well, Corona. And apparently the Mexicans reckon they wouldn't be caught dead with this crap either. So, you know, what's all that about? Well, look, you know, I think we need to learn from this. If you've got a product that's flunking really badly in Australia, ring the boys up at Foster's, because they've obviously worked out a way of getting it offshore and having everybody love it. But look, the guys at Foster's went out for tender. Well, no, before that, they're actually, better tell you a little bit about the organisation. It's not all about the blue can. They have over 100 brands, and they're on 5 continents, and certainly a very old history, I think, for Australia, 160 odd years, right through the whole range of alcohol, including cider. Apparently someone drinks that still, but anyway, there you go. The tender they went out for was fleet, substantial size fleet for Australia, 1,800 vehicles, located right across Australia at bottling, manufacturing, distribution, and you know, down to the point of having tractors and vineyards. So quite a broad range fleet. And as you'd expect for a large manufacturer like that, very mature procurement process and quite a large team. The challenge they were faced with was this was an internally managed fleet. It always had been. And it was self-funded. And I'm sure for any of you here today, if you've been challenged with trying to outsource something that's been internally run for a long time, especially in something like vehicles, which is so passionate, everybody's got an opinion, everyone's an expert when it comes to vehicles, they certainly had their range of challenges set out for them. Well, when we look at tenders, you might be a little bit surprised to hear that we actually don't sit in our office waiting all day for you guys to send us a tender. It's true, we don't. And when one just rolls up out of the blue, we tend to look at it and go, oh, that's interesting, why have we got this? What are these guys asking for? So what we do before we even look at a tender for you is we actually go through a bit of a checklist. And we want to have an idea, is this tender something we really want to go for? Because it costs us a lot of time and a lot of money to respond to one of your tenders. So we run our checklist. And the first item on our checklist is, do we have a relationship? Because that's very important to us. We don't like cold tenders. And the guys at Foster's had a very good strategy on this. Very, very long lead time, and you might be a bit shocked, 12-month lead time on their tender. But when you consider the number of challenges that they had to get through to actually get this tender out, it made really good sense. So they went out to the entire market, and they made it very clear to us that this was going to be a 12-month process. And that in this process, they were going to talk to the entire industry, and they were going to get some ideas about what could be done and couldn't be done. So they used this exceptionally long lead time for discovery. And I believe they actually pulled off a bit of a coup in this, because they managed to do due diligence without us getting the 400-page questionnaire asking us, you know, all these wonderful questions that you do to us. And the other great thing that they could do with this very soft questioning is they'd talk to our competitor. So they're able, and talk to different parts of our businesses. So they're able actually to form a bigger picture than perhaps a document that we might give them about this tender. And from this, they actually achieved this due diligence. Now, truth be known, it was subtle, but I reckon at the end of it, they're probably like this, you know, ASIO, they probably had a dossier on us about this big. But it paid off for them, because they really knew who they wanted to deal with as they got through. Second part we're looking for, does it fit into our service model? Because, believe it or not, whilst we're a service organisation, we still have capacity issues. And we have almost like a manufacturing process. It's almost like a McDonald's. We know when we make the hamburger, we put the bun down, then the patty, then the pickle, it all works in that order. So if you come along to us and say, oh look, we want you to do this completely different, put in the pickle and then try to assemble it a different way, this is when we all start to fail. So the first things that we all look for is, does it fit our service model? And certainly with Foster's it did. Because by coming out to us so early, to the entire industry, it gave us an opportunity for us to work with them and challenge both sides about what that model was going to look like, especially because it was a partial outsource. So it gave us a chance to influence their model, and particularly if we look at things like a new car delivery. Foster's wanted to retain the component of ordering the vehicle because they were funding it themselves. But our obligation was to get fuel cards and a kit into the vehicle and deliver it on time. So you can immediately see there's a gap. Whose fault is it if the vehicle doesn't get delivered with fuel cards? Is it our fault if we didn't get the data in time, or is it Foster's fault? So this gave us this opportunity with them to challenge these things and say, well, perhaps if we did this bit and you did that bit, it might be better. They also worked very close with the industry in examining KPIs across a broad range of suppliers, and to talk about those KPIs. What were they really looking for in that sausage machine? When did they actually want something to happen rather than how they wanted us to do it? And I think they played us off a little bit together quite nicely as well, managed us to get us to tighten up our KPIs before the tender. And the other great bit is it gave us an opportunity to look at alternative ways and for us to get used to the idea. So internally, our team was ready for it, their team was ready for it. Because as you can imagine, there was going to be some personnel movement within that group as soon as they extracted a number of the fleet activities out of it. So the third item we're looking at on our checklist, is it on our agenda? Well, clearly it was. We'd spent 12 months talking to these people. Of course it was on our agenda. You know, it's 100% fit with our business model, 100%. But was it really, or did we actually make it fit? And I think probably some days we probably made it fit. And we saw this as A-class business, not just because it was an iconic brand, but also because it fitted. It was the right size for us, we knew about the business, we knew it would work. So, what happens when the tender comes out? Absolutely no surprises. None whatsoever. And I've got to say, this is probably one of the few times I've found this. We have actually had these type of early contractor involvement type of situations. And we've actually found ourselves, when the tender comes out, it's completely different to the conversation we had. And we sort of think, well, hang on a minute, were we in the same meeting with them? But in this case, there were absolutely no surprises. It was 100% what we expected. 100% alignment of values and the service and the expectation for Foster's. So, what do you think we did with it? Because we were gagging for this piece of business after 12 months, and we were worn out by then. Well, we went hard, didn't we? And I think the whole industry went hard. And the proof of the pudding, and the test for us was, is it winnable? Yes, it was. So we went hard. Proof of the pudding, Foster's got what they wanted. Lowest fees of 10% in the year. Now, you're probably asking yourselves, did Fleetcare win it or not? Well, of course we did. I wouldn't be telling you the story if we hadn't. But the lowest 10%. Now, you might look at this and say, well, hang on a minute. It should be low 10%. 1,800 vehicles. It's a reasonable sized fleet in Australia. It's up in that top bracket. It's an iconic brand. Of course you'd want that on your portfolio. You know, who have you got as a customer? Foster's. Hey, that goes well. Everybody drinks booze. Well, most of them. So, but that's not always the case. The fact is that because we saw it as low-cost business to do, we knew what the demand levels were, we knew the team already, and we knew what it was going to cost us to deliver it. We knew we could price this exactly. We didn't have to build fat in for the unknown risk, which is very unusual on a tender. Foster's achieved the objective of a partial outsource because we'd got through all the problems before it came to us. The transition was smooth, because the objectives were clear from the beginning. Everybody knew what they were going to do. And through the life of contract, there was just some minor tweaking that we did to get it to work nicely, but very minor. So all in all, it was a win-win situation. We were very happy with the business. It was priced right. We saw them as an A-class client. For Foster's, they got the right price. They achieved their primary goal of a successful partial outsource. So, it's a good story. But not all tenders are exactly great. We live with these documents that you send to us, and we get them and we have to read through them, and they cause us some challenges. So let's have a little look at what we hate about tenders. And there's not many things, honestly. Look, they can be very impersonal, especially if you haven't had any contact at the beginning. You can read the document and can really struggle to understand what they're trying to achieve within the document. You're trying to decipher phrases and words and text into what you're really trying to achieve. And one of the great challenges is it can be really easy for you to ask us the wrong questions. Because, we know, like for fleet and certain other commodities that you're going for, you're not tendering for this every month or every year, or anything. It could be a 3 or 4 year cycle. So there's a number of questions, you can actually get the question completely wrong. And we just look at that sometimes and say, well, it's an operating lease tender. If you'd asked us this instead, perhaps we could have helped you. And if you've locked us down too much in the document, we can't find a spot to put it. So that can cause us a challenge. And sometimes you ask us questions that just bear no relevance, and that throws a bit of confusion into the pot. Other times, organisations have gone out to the market and you've looked at, say, 10 suppliers, and you've picked the eyes out of their products, all the really, really nice bits, and you've gone, this is great. If I had a product with these 10 great features, I'll have exactly what I want. So you send us a tender with the 10 best features out of 10 best suppliers. We get the document, what do? We go, well, that's not our product. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So I think there's a number of challenges there for you in what you're trying to achieve, and then when we get the document and trying to bring it back to maybe a little bit of reality. So certainly we've received a few tenders for products that almost don't exist. Can we build it? Yeah, sure, somebody will eventually, but you want to look at what that cost is as well. Tenders have been known to be used for a reconnaissance mission. Go out, get information for us. Some organisations, and none of you guys I know, might use it to justify the retention of an internal department, getting intellectual property from us. Certainly in a tender, if you ever ask us to give you flowcharts of our processes, we panic, because we immediately see we're giving away something here that could be used in another area. So that causes us a few challenges as well. But people who do that, I know, they're not CIPSA members. They would be the other organisations. Certainly nobody in here would ever do that to us, we know. But at the end of it, there's some challenges in the tenders. So let's jump to that slide and have a look at my top 10 tender mistakes. Okay, what do you reckon number 10 is? Number 10. Tenders that ask for a concise response in a complex question. This happens a lot to us. Please give us your risk mitigation strategy for supply chain breakdown in 2 lines. Hey, no word of a lie. The document's locked down. We can't add anything else in. We look at ourselves and we flick it open and we go, well, we've got a 10-page standard response to this, and you want us to shove it into 2 lines. What do? Refer attachment. Yeah? Yeah. And we know you hate that. Refer attachment. Flick, 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 flick. Number 9, tender templates that bear no resemblance to the product or the service that you're looking for. Service, especially in fleet, this happens to us a lot. We get commodity type of tenders. Things that sort of say to us, oh, look, for everything that you supply, you must have an order number for all you supply, and you must send an invoice in on a certain number of days, and it's got to be signed by 6 people from the organisation. And we're thinking, hang on a minute, we're going to have somebody at every service station for when you pull in to buy fuel. It's not going to work. So these types of documents for us are very, very difficult for us to manoeuvre through them. And sometimes we don't know how to answer it. And then the worst one is you also attach a document that could perhaps be an agreement for the supply of things like stationery and that. And then we start to look and go, well, hang on a minute, this is getting really bad now. We just can't make this work. Number 8. Asking the same question over and over. We can understand why this happens. You're sitting in your area, you've sent out the document or some questionnaires out to your stakeholders, the end user, the contract manager, sales, service, delivery, and all those sort of people. And everybody's got an opinion, so they send it all back to you. And some poor person in your team has to try to bolt all this together into a tender that makes sense. And of course there's a deadline, isn't there? And you guys love deadlines, I know that. So out it goes, we get it, And we're now struggling because we've got a 2-page answer for this one question that's been repeated 3 times. What do? Do we repeat the answer 3 times so that you have to read it over and over? And we appreciate you could be reading thousands and thousands of pages. So we then challenge, do we repeat it 3 times or do we do the refer? Number 7, formatting and number errors. Now this is actually normally the Frankenstein document. You guys have gone, hey, that tender worked really well for us, let's grab that one and we're just going to hack it up and we'll use a bit of this one and we'll use a bit of that one and it all comes together. So we get question 16 5 times. So then we're challenged. When we're answering question 16 and referring back to it, what do we say? In our response to question 16 on page 32, not to be confused with question 16 on page 47, 53, 127, 199, and in the forward as well. Then the other day, we got one. It was absolutely brilliant. In it came to us. Top of the page, the headline question. No problem at all. 44 bullet points underneath it. Now, I don't know about you. I never knew you could get 44 bullet point lines on a page, but these guys did. I think it was 6-point Arial or Times Roman narrow, I think. But they managed to fit it in. 44 bullet points. So we refer to bullet point number 22. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know where I'm going on that, don't you? Outline numbering. It's beautiful. Works really well. Number 6. Running a tender over Christmas. Oh my, what are you doing to us? Hey? Now, those of you in government have been known to do this occasionally. Honestly. Now, you know, look, I know Christmas, you know, look, we're a lazy industry. We work hard for 11 months of the year. You guys go quiet on us over Christmas. You don't do much, you know, your contract managers don't generally do much in vehicles. So we think, great, we're going to knock off just before Christmas. We'll take most of January off. We'll come back and get back to work. Bang, out it comes. 20th of December. Just about always the week before we knock off. Guess which date it closes? Second Friday of January without fail. It's unbelievable. Number 5, we're halfway there. The same guy that called the Christmas tender goes on holiday. Laugh as you may, this happens a lot. So we get on the phone. Can we speak to Bob? We've got a couple of questions about the tender. No, I'm sorry, Bob's on holidays. Anybody else we can speak to? Nope. No, only Bob. Oh, great, okay. Tender closes 10th of January. When's Bob back? 13th, yes, exactly. Bob's coming back just in time to sit down at his desk with all this big pile of tenders and distribute it to the team to look at. It happens quite a bit, actually. It's scary. Number 4. Saying you're green and asking for 6 bound copies. We read 3 pages about how loving and caring you guys are to the environment. And then you say to us, give you 6 bound copies. Well, what do? We're very environmentally conscious. We give you triple bleached, high gloss, heavyweight paper. 1.5 line spacing, big margins, bright colour, double printed, single sided. You get a document from us that is about 200-300 pages long. We've chopped down about 1 million trees to produce it and consumed about 400 litres of bleach to get the paper put together. I think it's a question, are you green or you're not green? And sometimes these tenders need to reflect one of the same. Number 3. This happened this year. This was a good one. 250 quotes for 50 vehicles. Okay, very small fleet. But 250 quotes. Now, what you have to understand here is that salesmen generally answer tenders. And what are salesmen? Don't say it. Well, what are salesmen? They are typically lazy people. Sorry, guys. They are very lazy people. So what happens? 250 quotes or an easy one? 250 quotes, nice easy one, big chunk of business. They rang us and they said, you didn't tender. I said, that's funny. How many did? And he said, 1. We sent it out to 15 organisations, 1 tendered. I went, well, what do you expect? You're killing us. 250 quotes for 50, never going to happen. So your tenders need to be sometimes balanced in what you're asking for. And we tend to find the larger the organisation, the bigger the tender becomes. Number 2, we're at the sharp end. Excel. please stop sending us Excel as a document to put text in. Have you ever tried doing it? Excel's got some really great features, 1,024 characters, but it lets you type more than 1,024 characters in. So when we save it, off goes the rest of the text. It disappears on us. What you get from us is answers that don't make sense. You're missing half the story. So we're smart. What do? We try to hack into the document, break the password. It's about that long normally, but you can get some really good software for that to fix that problem. We try to reformat the document so it's going to work for us, and then bang, we send it back to you. But Mr. Gates has got another trick up his sleeve. 2010's backward compatible to 97, isn't it? Not. So when we send it to you and you convert it back or up or down, depending which way we're going, we lose some other bits and pieces. Randomly. I think Microsoft built in this random loss methodology into the document. It causes some challenge. Look, there's some really good things. You could use Word, or there's some really good online software. But please, stop sending us Excel. I know you guys don't do it, it's the other people, but Excel's a killer. And it still happens. Number one, the number one top tender mistake. Stop leaving track changes turned on. Oh my gosh! You've got no idea what we read. Do you realise that you send the documents through the organisation and people actually type in comments? If we ask this question, this is going to screw them. I don't like the guy from this place because he's a bit of a... But anyway, we open the document and go, whoa, this is a bit of fun. Hey, if I was a brave man, I'd post some of these. We could have a field day, but I'd probably never get any business ever again, so we'll keep them hidden, okay? But look, they're a bit of fun, but seriously, we still get these constantly, and it never ceases to amaze us how these appear. But moving in, let's have a look at the value of being a valued customer. And what does that mean? Well, the first thing you've got to realise is we measure you. I know you measure us. Well, we definitely measure you. And it's really quite simple. We're quite crude animals out there, or suppliers I'm talking about here. We basically categorise you into three categories. You're an A client, a B client, or a C client. So an A client to us is the profitable client. That doesn't mean it's a high price. It generally means that it's giving us profit. So maybe it's a low delivery cost. Maybe it's high volume, low delivery cost. Generally has recent latency. You're doing lots of buying, lots of churning over, which is really good for us. Keeps the sales guys busy. You never want to have a salesman being lazy. The other thing is often an iconic position, like a Foster's or something like that, because it's really good for us. We can go, hey, look at our customer here. This is really important. And then the other interesting thing about them is if we talk to our sales support team, to our client service teams, they'll generally say, hey, they're really good people to deal with. Tough, a little bit demanding, but they're nice. And it's interesting how often these A clients have these very, very similar attributes. Then the next level client, we've got the B. And this is really our base load client. You know, they're reasonably profitable. They have variances within that. Medium level delivery cost, not overly demanding, but you know, they can be, but it's not too hard. If we talk to our staff, they're generally fairly neutral about them. Nice people, everything goes fine, you know. They just work. And that's really our baseline. And then we've got the Cs. And the Cs are low profitable clients, typically shoppers. They're typically not using us a lot, and they might be shopping us continually and using us less and less and less. The support staff will tell us that they are demanding, and they won't rate them very well. They'll actually say, look, they're not really a nice group of people to deal with at the end. And then there's the other group, which are even worse. But what we're trying to achieve with these customers is we're trying to move them. So ideally, maybe 10, 20%, probably 10% is your A class. Your baseline, maybe 60 to 80%, and then C clients. You want them to be as few as possible. You're always going to have them. And then what we're trying to do is we're trying to filter them up. Move a C to a B, B to an A. Because you've always got some sort of drop-off. And then if you can't convert a C to a B, drop them off. Too right. But there's an ugly beast. There's an ugly, ugly, ugly one. Excuse me. The toxic client. This is a drama for us. Drama for any supplier. They are typically very, very disrespectful behaviour, almost abusive, almost aggressive type of behaviour. They dispute invoices. Nothing's right, ever. And in that, dispute process, we've actually had an invoice for about $120,000 held up for a $100 transaction. They question everything, they're high maintenance. The biggest problem is they sap the lifeblood out of your client service teams. They erode them. And the concern for you is this. While your supplier is dealing with one of these, they're not servicing you. You need to find a way of understanding how your suppliers treat these type of clients, because these will cost you ultimately with your supplier. No matter how good they look on the outside, no matter what the price is that they've given you, if they can't control these guys, you're in big trouble. So what's the value of being a valued customer? Well, I think it's manifold. I think not only if you're an A-class customer, if you're valued, you're going to expect your responses to be done quicker than the other guy. It's fair enough, isn't it? I think if you're looking at your supplier and you want some innovation or new ideas or new products to come to you, you would like to think they're going to come to you before they give them to one of your competitors. That's a fair enough assumption as well. You can also leverage that very nicely in the cost area. Are there some ideas? Are there some ways that you can work with your supplier to actually reduce your costs? And who are they going to work with first? You, as an A-class client, or the C client, or the B? Well, naturally, you're going to want to keep the one that you want to keep, aren't you? That's where your effort's going to go. In cases where supply has been outstripped by demand, you're going to be first cab off the rank. And we certainly saw that through the GFC in a number of areas. Certainly when it was money, finance at that stage was tight. The A's and the B's got the money, the C's never got anything. And we've certainly seen it recently with Japan and the Japanese vehicle manufacturers. Guess who's getting supply? So, and of course, the other things that you can do is, if you're going to roll over the tender and you've got an opportunity to extend, what a great opportunity to have a little bit of a squeeze for price. We don't mind being squeezed. Well, it's much cheaper for us to keep you as a customer than to go to tender and to risk losing you. Hopefully you should be able to get maybe an even better price by some skillful negotiation. But the trick for you is this. You need to understand how your supplier measures you. You need to understand where you're ranked in your supplier's mind. And you need to also understand how your supplier deals with C-class and certainly the toxic type of clients. Because ultimately, that's where your cost will come through. So what have we learnt today? Well, Australians don't drink Fosters and Mexicans certainly don't drink Corona. Have a look at early contractor involvement. I know if you're in government you're going to be screaming probity and you're going to give me a few other nice sort of words wrapped around that, fairness in the marketplace and all that type of thing. But I believe there are ways that you can go about this and still meet your internal objectives and guidelines. At all costs, avoid my top 10 tender mistakes. And I'm going to be watching out for them. I'm going to be very disappointed if anybody in this room ever does that. Understand the way the supplier measures you. Very important. That's going to ultimately tell you how your service is going to be delivered. Don't ever become a toxic client. If you think you're a toxic client, and to be fair, here it's not you guys. It's actually your contract manager and your end users will be the one with the toxicity, if anything. So you need to have that understanding. And of course, leverage the advantage of being either an A-class or at least a B-plus type of client. It is really that simple. Look, that's all I've got to say for today. Good afternoon, enjoy the rest of your day.